Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Aftershow, where designers discuss design. We're on episode 12, and we're talking not quite micro games.
Oh my god, you guys are gonna kill me.
Woo!
Well, I gotta strategically drink so that my glass always shows the maple leaf when I'm drinking.
Very well done. Very well done.
Stay bottoms up. So we managed to keep Matt with us for the after show, and we promised him to be horrible and less professional during the after show because he paid us a nice compliment and said that we did okay. But we're going to keep talking about these filler games, these smaller games. You know, what makes them good? Why do we turn to them? Why are they popular? Let's just go right out there. I'm going to put Matt on the spot, put him on the hot seat. What are some bad examples of some filler or some small game?
Did you just ask for an opinion? Did you just ask for an opinion?
Matt said he's a very opinionated person, so we're going to put him on the spot. Shoot a game down. What is a small game that just was a dud?
You have to give us some.
How is this possibly beneficial for me? Like,
okay. Here's a better question. Here's a better question. How would you improve a small game?
There's the send suck up version.
Sam, he's just so positive. That guy. I'm telling you.
Go for the throat, Matt. Go for the throat.
All right, so here's a game that I initially loved and then started to hate. Not hate, I guess I just don't like anymore and I have no interest in playing. And it's Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale by Z-Man Games. And when I initially played Fairy Tale, I thought it was novel, I thought it was neat, I thought it was, sort of clever, but playing it a couple times, playing it more than once, I started to easily see those holes. I started to see it's like, well, you always take, this type of card. This one's far stronger than this. This is like a sucker's bet to try and draft. And it's like I can easily see. I've only played Sushi Go twice now, but I think I can easily see that happening there as well. At least for me or my player personality, where it's like there's obvious things to do. So anybody who listened to the previous show, obviously not the after show. I said that you get into a degenerate strategy. I don't know if there's people who watch this and not the other thing. That'd be weird. But you watched the after show for a show you never watched. But yeah, so it's like there's essentially a degenerate strategy. There's one path to victory that you should be taking, and the only time you're not taking it is when the option wasn't presented to you. And both of those games are drafting games, and they just have this flaw of, well, you draft the best card in the hand, and the best card is generally follows a list with like a couple of asterisks that might move one up, one above the other. And yeah, Fairy Tale just broke for me based on that. So yeah, I put Richard, put some designers on blast there.
That's all right. It's interesting because your player personality, out of the three classic Magic ones, who would you say you are?
Spike.
Yeah, I was just gonna call you Spike. But it's pretty funny because when
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say the funny thing is I've actually gone through. I didn't start as Spike, so it's like I started
metamorphosized into Spike.
Exactly.
Nice.
When I started, I was Timmy. I was Timmy. I moved to Johnny, and I became Spike. I actually went through the whole gamut. I didn't know what I was when I was it. Mark Rosewater didn't define those terms right off the bat, or I wasn't paying attention to that. But yeah, looking back, I started off, I'm like, wow, this is cool. And then I'm like, well, then this is cool. I want to beat Crawworms into play, right? And then it was, wow, I want to make really unique decks. And it's like, wow, now I'm playing to win, right? Yeah. And like going through that entire gamut, yeah. So I've been at all, but at this point, yeah, I'm definitely Spike. And the funny thing is, I'm Spike. I still like, putting giant creatures into play. I still like building unique things, but like if I'm playing to win, I'm playing to win. If I'm playing to have fun, I'm playing to have fun. Like they're two totally separate things for me at this point.
Right.
And I can make, quote unquote, make a deck or make a game or play a game based on those two different distinctions.
Yeah. So. I wonder if that's because of the goals, and I was talking about what Jason was saying when he said, his real goal of playing games is social interaction, and you seem to have a couple goals in terms of competition being one of them, like highly competitive level of play, and then the other being, let's just play a game. And sometimes that is so neat. I didn't know how does that happen. Sorry, something just popped up over Daryl's head. Did you guys see that?
Did he like hit the Google Hangout icon things?
No, this little thing that said, "I'm still willing to talk about bad filler games." Okay, so anyways, after we talk about my thing, we'll get back.
That's really funny. That's in the chat.
Yeah.
Here, I can actually blast. I can blast a small filler game too.
All right, blast another one, Matt. Go ahead.
So here, Love Letter.
Oh.
I'm not a huge fan. The game is terrible two-player.
I really don't care.
The game,
two players?
It is terrible as a two-player game, and
That doesn't surprise me.
And as in a 3 or 4 player, it's okay, it's clever. I mean, but you hit situations where it's like you don't have a choice. So it's like sometimes your turn doesn't, it's like you're not making a choice of what to do with your hand, and a lot of times you're just guessing at what to do. And so it's like, yeah. So I mean, it doesn't. I own a copy. I've played it, a dozen times or so. I don't really have an interest to play it. I introduce non-gamers. I introduce games to non-gamers via that game at this point.
Right.
Like it's like
That's a good idea.
That's the only thing that I can see because then it's like the non-decision aspect actually becomes a benefit at some point, and then they get to feel clever.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
An obvious strategy.
Yeah,
So
well,
it becomes very like, oh, I think I'm clever because I know what to do when I have these 2 cards.
Yeah, you've got 2
cards.
Yeah, the decisions are very nominal. It's not a lot to figure out. I mean, I've had my family play that game. I've had other non-gamer friends play that game, and it gets them thinking and it gets them understanding that hey, wait, a game can be more than a roll and a move game. And so I mean it's really good for that. As far as gamers that I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me. Like trying to figure it out, and like I said, it's absolutely terrible 2-player.
I'm willing to throw 2 more on the list on the fire because I mean I don't think it's fair to ask you without that being.
I might fan the flames. I'll see if I can fan the flames. Well,
that is noble of you, Daryl.
So I will fall on a couple swords. One, and I do feel bad about crushing this one because they're basically the monster that owns all board game companies now. But I'm going to shoot down Augustus. I love Asmodee and all their billion partners, but Augustus, I feel like I'm on crazy pills when people are playing it and think it's a fun game.
Oh man!
And I'm just like, is it just blue steel? Like, aren't we just seeing the same thing over and over again?
No, that was Magnum. That was Magnum. 100% Magnum.
That was Magnum. I don't know what the difference is. It's bingo, and so that game, I'm just begging for more game to come out someday and make that game something interesting. The other game, and this, I will admit, it was clever and it was interesting and it was fun early on. A part of it is probably because I worked in a cafe and I got really sick of teaching it, is Ghost Blitz. I get that it's clever. I don't know if you guys have played Ghost Blitz, but it's like the most popular game cafe game in the world.
Really?
But it's basically you just flip a card and grab one of 5 items, and it's either on the card or not on the card. And there's a certain point where, unless it's just a drinking game, there's no way I can compute why people are still playing that. So that would be a couple fillers.
Well, so here's what you said. I mean, you said it's like one of the most popular cafe games out there, right? So what are you trying to do? You're in a social environment, and you're trying to be social. And so it's adding a small set of rules to your social interaction, and and just something that doesn't matter if you win or lose, and that's exactly what I guess it's designed to do, and that's what it does.
Oh, I
So
think
it definitely meets the expectation, but
yeah, there you go.
Dylan, here we go. Ready?
I'm saying this is where we are. When you guys were harshing my mellow over on the chat there, when I wanted to talk about Wheatzinga and I wanted to talk about all that kind of wonderful stuff, this is where we are here.
Do it.
You're talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's the sacred space. The concept that Huizinga as a good anthropologist introduced of the sacred space, the game.
I swear you're just saying Huizinga. I swear.
Huizinga.
Yeah. All right, but no, this sounds
at some point a Dutch friend is going to tell me how I'm supposed to be pronouncing it. But anyway, the issue of creating a sacred space where XYZ happens, and the fact is you're creating a set of rules. It's no different from religious ritual. It's no different from children playing in the street. It's you at a table participating in a new reality. And the weird thing is that humans have this just innate ability to accept the rules of a completely constructed reality, and that plays out in all of those different situations. Who knows what exactly the point of that is, but the fact is it plays out really well in game cafes and it makes them a lot of money. But to kind of carry on with that whole idea of the sacred space, like what we were talking about previously in the actual show was the stuff that we do to make a game that engages people into a sacred space. And so when we're ragging on the games that don't necessarily hook us in, it's like we've failed to create the suspension of disbelief. We failed to create the space into which we can all buy in and all participate. But there are certain people who play at a given level, like, I've got lots of friends, family who are not gamers who want to play at a certain level, and that's all they care about. But it's the act of participation within that sacred space, that area of play that Huizinga identified, that is really, really interesting. And so I'm going to go back to kind of the concept of the game disappearing from the last, when Jason was talking about the last in the show. When the game disappears and it's just interactions, it's kind of back to the Taoist philosophy of what's the best government. The worst government is a government that's hated. The next worst government is a government that's loved.
Yes.
The best government is a government that is not known to exist.
It's a transparency, right? And I'm gonna go into that one with a little bit more deepness. Talk about my area specialty.
You know me. You know me.
Yeah, this is leading into flow experience, right? So if you study like Mihaly, and I can't even pronounce his last name, Csikszentmihalyi, but it's flow. Sorry, somebody who's Czechoslovakian is going to come in and lambaste me on that one. I think he's I'm not sure where he's from, but anyways, the flow experience is where you are occupied in whatever you're doing for at such a great degree that you don't notice the passage of time. And then really, you could just call it engagement, right? But it's something that human beings really actually need to experience on a regular basis in order to feel like they're they're energized, they're focusing on something, they're enjoying the activity, not for merely the competitive aspect of a game, but for the holistic experience of the game itself. And so I think what happens when some of us are looking at a specific game and saying, like for me, it's games like like Killer Bunnies or Munchkin or something like that. Let's just call those ones out. I can't take myself out of the analysis of that game to say, okay, I can play that game. I just can't do. I can't get into.
Funny because they're all about experience, right? Like when you hear and see people that are passionate about those games, it is so story driven. Their response.
Well, they've drunk the Kool-Aid.
No, but also no.
Have they drunk the Kraken? Have they drunk the Kraken?
If you've ever you get somebody who drinks a certain drink, right?
Is it Kraken?
You'll find at the base of that purchase decision, they had a particularly good experience with that drink the first time out.
Yes.
That's where a huge amount of people are,
Yeah,
right?
it's first impressions,
For sure,
right?
for sure.
Just like any wine.
Ah.
That's
Some
why
people will never
learning a
drink the
game
first
is so
drink that they
important.
got drunk on, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, teaching the game right and learning it right is so important.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, totally agree.
Well, all right. Well, what about we focus the conversation a little more on the positive side? So I'm going to throw it out there. What are maybe then, maybe I sent us down a dark alley. Dylan tried to drive us into meaning, which brought us back to light. So let's go with what do you find some fun? When is the elegance working for you? When is the engagement excellent for the amount of investment? Where are those moments where you're finding a small game makes a big place in your heart?
I think we should come back and try to bring those nasty, horrible games back out. I'm gonna say Love Letter, and say when my
You're not
son.
gonna talk me into it. You're not gonna talk me into it.
Seriously, when my son is so totally annoyed at the fact that I'm talking up the fact that he has to kiss the princess if he wins. I just find that hilarious. There's so much.
That's parent cruelty.
But here's the thing.
That's it,
Is your enjoyment of that experience is no longer related to the game you're playing, but to the person that you're playing it with.
Yes,
exactly. But it's the shared experience that's important.
Sure.
We're talking about well-designed games.
But
here's the thing.
Let's.
But games are about an experience, and so that's why I haven't gotten rid of a game like Love Letter from my collection.
I own that too.
Because it still serves a purpose, but it doesn't serve a purpose. It doesn't serve all of the purposes. There are other games that I think can serve that same purpose better. One of those is something like Coloretto. I can teach Coloretto to anybody, and I can still enjoy playing Coloretto. And you can still get that same type of an experience, that same introductory experience, but that same allowing people to feel clever, figuring things out on their own with a dirt simple set of rules.
Yep.
You have two decisions on your turn every turn in Coloretto too. You either take a pile or you add a card to a pile, and that's it. And so that's where we are in an age where you have a lot of selection to be able to go from. So a lot of selections to choose games from. Do you have to keep games that have flaws when there are other similar games that don't have that same flaw?
Good point.
Exactly.
So where are you going to take that, Daryl?
Well, I just think that there is a motivation towards elegance. There's a motivation still to making games that do what maybe has been used in the past in a better way. So, for instance, I think Love Letter was great at its time and it served its purpose, but I think we can find other games that are going to serve that same purpose and may even elevate the expectation and the feeling of games. There's a little bit of a letdown that occurs with Love Letter as well. As much as I can use it to teach people, there is this tipping point where people go, well, why didn't you teach me a better game? Why did you do this to me?
Oh, man.
You can't handle the better game.
There is a catch-22 where I go, for me, an 8-Minute Empire, I think is a fantastic small game, quick to teach, tackles a whole bunch of interesting mechanics. Or something like even Hey, That's My Fish. I love that game.
I still love that game.
And it's so clever and it works still. There's never a moment where I'm disappointed.
Yeah. No,
dude, I have to hit you with a quote from the Book of Tea by Okakura Kakuzo, commenting about a Tea Master's tea implement collection. Said they, each piece is such that no one could help admiring. It shows that you had better taste than had Rikyu, for his collection could only be appreciated by the beholder in 1,000. Sorrowfully, Enshu replied, this only proves how commonplace I am. The great Rikyu dared to love only those objects which personally appealed to him, whereas I unconsciously cater to the taste of the majority. Verily, Rikyu was one in 1,000 among tea masters. And we're talking about people who have extremely rarefied tastes here. We are game designers.
It's ridiculous.
We have very, very, very rarefied tastes. And
I don't know if it really. I don't think that it is that rarefied taste. And this goes full circle to a conversation I was having with Sen before we went on air. But we were talking about there is really actually an ignorant splurge purchase period where games are often bought. So someone gets their 15, 20 games. They're all I played that game and I really loved it. I played that game, I really loved it. And then all of a sudden there's this collector mentality of, oh, I need to buy up all the games that I'm told are popular and good. And then you find these people that have collections of games and they're like, well, now I'm going to be actually very critical of my future purchases and I'm trying to unload these quote-unquote popular mass choices. But really, they're just trying to get rid of them because they're like, oh, shoot, like, I don't like these. Why am I buying these things?
Yeah, that's true enough. I mean, I bought Puerto Rico for the same reason, and I don't play it at all. At all.
Yeah.
I love Puerto Rico.
Anyone want my Puerto Rico? There you go.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with
Sure. There is a beauty in the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, what we were talking about before is exactly that period where, I got to go to BGG and buy everything that has a ranking of 6.5 and above or whatever it is that I can lay my hands on. And I mean, that's pushing the actual distribution market right now, in fact, is the whole BGG rankings. But let's get back to small games. So, Matt, because you're here and we don't get to talk to you all the time, what is a small game that you will, other than Colorado, because you already talked about that, what's another small game that you'll pull out with gamers, with people who already do game?
Council of Verona with the Poison expansion.
Nice.
I really like that one. I wouldn't play it without the Poison expansion, though. So that's a really good example of like something small that really makes or breaks that game for me. Playing it without that expansion, no go. But with it, it's an awesome game. Hanabi, is another small game I'll pull out. Little Prince Make Me a Planet.
Mm-hmm.
That game's awesome. I mean, I like, it's like I have a weird. I guess my small games are, I like a lot of deduction. So, it's like all those games have elements of deduction. Just like Colorado and just like what I designed in Dragon Flame 2 just has deduction. So, let's see, other small games. I don't know. I mean, like I've had a lot of small games that have fallen flat. Like I've purchased a lot of small games and then they end up falling flat after like 2 or 3 plays, and I just don't. And I just forget about them anymore. Some of them I still own. But it's like I don't want to pull them out anymore. Like those that I named, I can still pull out, and I've played them all more than a dozen times.
Right.
So I really like those.
And did they fall flat because they were intrinsically broken, or because you figured them out, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a game being figured out is intrinsically broken. So yeah. I mean, and not everybody, see, the thing is, not everybody thinks that way. Some people are okay with, like, oh, that was a fun experience 1 or 2 times, and they don't even try to play it a 3rd or 4th or more times. They're just like, yep, I had fun the first time, and there's I guess an art to that as well, like having a game that's really fun the first time you play it. But it's like I'd prefer to have that be really fun the first time I play it, and be able to play it like again and again and again to re-experience that.
Right, because you were talking about evergreen games as well, that you want to make a game that lasts.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I think some games maybe in the development don't go through that thought process. They're just like, yeah, this is fun. It's like, and you keep playing with a lot of, and in that mentality of playtest, 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 right? It's like you try to play the game with as many people as you can, and while as many people as you can is a lot of new people. And it's like if each one is only playing the game once, and they're like, yeah, that was really fun, and it's like they're not actually digging deep into it. I think it's the designer, the developer's role to actually look at the game each time and make sure that it's not happening. But if you don't have that developer mentality, you're not necessarily doing that.
Right.
So yeah.
I want to jump on actually because I got a question for us to talk about. It never came up during the main show, but I've heard a couple games referenced that are fillers, but they're card games, strictly cards. So are card games filler games, or do you feel like they're a separate category? And why?
Card games often fall into filler games just because they tend to, based on the footprint, they try to keep themselves to a shorter playtime, or they lend themselves to a shorter playtime. I mean, if you think about a game that has a playtime of 2 hours, how many components are in that game? You're generally talking hundreds of components at that point. So if you have 100 cards and a hand size of X, the real number of components you're playing in that game probably isn't even the complete deck. So I think there's a time correlation there to number of components to playtime, and I don't think they should be in their own category entirely. If we did want to try and discuss, instead of small games, about micro games and trying to define what a micro game is versus a small game, sorry to make you guys a drink, but that's a completely different story. I mean, because what happens is a deck of cards a microgame? How many components defines a microgame versus a small game? You don't have to keep drinking, please. I need to have a code word so I don't kill you guys.
An M game.
An M game. Yeah. I mean, I could use the Patrick Nickel Nano game. How's that?
Oh, Nano game. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about what a M game is.
What is it? Yourself.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. So, I mean, Dylan, what about you? You definitely, in my mind anyways, are a player who plays for the experience. Even when the rules are entirely, huge rule sets and whatnot, you're still playing for the experience because you want that huge rule experience with a war game or something like that. What games are you looking at in terms of small box games?
You know what? I'm not even gonna go there. I don't do necessarily small box games. What I'm looking for is that feeling inside the sacred space. So talking about little stuff that I've played, the very simple small footprint games that I've played have in some cases just been in the heads of myself and a bunch of drunken friends. I'm thinking about, and funny, I guess we're all drunken friends now, right? I'm thinking a really stupid name for a game, and for some reason it's coming up. We called something Mutiny on the Plane. I have no idea why we did that. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We had a bunch of little figurines around, and we decided that we would just make a game. And all it was the figurines speaking to us, right? So we were attempting to make a game that was totally balanced and asymmetric, and every player had control of a few guards and an attacking player. So you were both defender and attacker at the same time, and you had to attack and take over this plane. This was before 2001, so it's totally fine to talk about, right? It was just an experience on that table with those miniatures, and it was the miniatures that spoke to us. And it was like the fact that what was being played was evoked by the pieces on the table. It's like to kind of make a short story long here, the reason why I'm not going there, is because a game that's small to me is a game that speaks to me. A game that's small to me is a game where the theme has imbued the pieces with such force that the rules disappear. Like, small to me is quick, easy to comprehend. I pick it up, and the story makes me understand the bits, because that's where we came from with those games. Is that was the story? It's like, okay, this guy's this way, this guy's this way, and this is how everything works together. The guards are the traditional archetypal dumb fumbling guards who do X, Y, Z, and the story worked. It fit together. It's perfect. And yes, San, it's your fault. It is your fault.
So let's bring this.
You should have known.
Can be actually relevant to other people in the world other than just inside your head.
I'm really sorry that my head. You should know by now that my head does not work in straight lines.
It does not.
No.
Concentric circles. But so let's bring your idea. Let's focus that on a game that other people might have actually heard of, other than Mutiny on the Plane. So let's talk about Death Angels. See, there's the big thumbs up. Okay, so that's a small box game.
It is a small box game, but I actually think it's a little big. There's a couple of humps to get over first. Once you really get into it, you can clearly just get into the story. But what I could see was my background in the whole Warhammer 40K universe was playing to my advantage in comprehending all of the bits of the game.
Right.
The kids that I was playing with, who were like 6 years old, did not have that entire lifetime experience of just like anally reading every single. Come on, like at a certain, you gotta start somewhere, right?
Right.
Gotta start somewhere. 13 plus, give me a break. Give me a break. I have.
As the manufacturer suggested.
I think that's for part size. They probably didn't get it tested for children.
I think that's because if you look at it, it's actually every single card is coated in arsenic, and that's why you can't give it to kids under 13 years old.
Yes. In the future, there's
only the really poisonous components.
Yes.
And the thing is, it's like, for me, the story was fine. For the kids, it's like the first time they're ever talking about gene stealers that like to rip the faces off people and implant eggs inside them so that they can, grow into big grown gene stealers as well. Anyway, the whole thing about this is that there's a story there, and when I'm looking at it, oh yeah, this really fits in with the whole storyline 40K. Yeah, this is great. And the kids are like, what do I do? What's a Terminator? So I had to actually dress my son up as a Terminator this Halloween to kind of get it.
That was an amazing costume.
Yeah, it was great.
And he loved it. And only one person in the entire, all Halloween, only one person realized he was a Space Marine.
It's almost cooler.
Really? Someone new.
So, anyway, one person. There you go. I've taken up too much goddamn time.
Yeah, that's okay.
I really didn't think anyone was going to get it other than online. So that's impressive.
Thumbs up for this guy.
Yeah.
Damn right.
If you had painted him ultramarine blue, though, I think more people would recognize
I'm guessing we should probably wrap this up because I fear certain words and might kill certain people. So we better just focus this down to wrap it up. I regret that I have but one liver to give for my country.
Oh my God. Well, thanks very much for coming on, Matt. Thanks for humoring us on this after show, which is
the unprofessional.
One of the more rowdy after shows that we've ever had.
Hey.
Quick shouts out to everybody who watches, who listens, who makes games, all that kind of stuff. You guys are great. Daryl, you want to wrap it up, brother?
Yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Again, a quick reminder, next week's episode is going to feature Richard Ham and Tiffany and Rihanna from Spooning Meeple. We're going to be chatting with them and asking them questions from the reviewer's perspective. But don't worry, we're still going to grill them with designer questions. We're just going to look for answers from a different source. So I'm actually really looking forward to that episode. Please send us your questions if you have some designer questions that you've always wanted to ask reviewers. And you can find us online. Sen's going to pop up all the million ways you can find us, but the main ones I'm just going to point out. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Google+. Or some other magical way that's listed there or that I'm forgetting. Again, keep making amazing games. We appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we'll have you on a show someday.